Um, Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on managing kidney conditions during COVID-19 lockdown. Just a quick recap on Patients Engage. We are an online platform which has been operational for over 5 years, and it's focused on holistic and evidence-based management of chronic conditions from the perspective of patients and caregivers. We strongly believe in the value of lived experiences and how being empowered and being engaged helps patients manage their own health better, leads to better decision making and to better quality of life. You can join our platform through multiple channels, and we will be talking about that in a minute. We've been doing monthly webinars for the last 18 months and a lot more during the last couple of months. As part of the series that we are doing with Kidney Warriors Foundation, we are trying to reach as many kidney patients as possible and to educate them on how to stay safe and well during COVID-19. So today's session, we are privileged to have with us Dr. Ashish Sharma, who is the head of Department of Renal Transplant Surgery, PGI Chandigarh, as well as Dr. Dinesh Khullar, who is the chairman of Nephrology and Renal Transplant Medicine, Max Super Specialty Hospital, Saket. So without much ado, let's get started. A quick reminder to people. Okay, so this session will be recorded, and if you're logged into Zoom, please post your questions on the Q&A, and we're already seeing questions there. If you are on Facebook, you can post them on the live feed, and somebody will help transfer that to Zoom. If you want privacy on Zoom, you can rename yourself, and as always, you can follow us on our website, on our Facebook page, Twitter handle or Instagram, or you can write to us at editor@patientsengage.com. We put up all of these videos on the YouTube channel. So let me quickly stop sharing and let's talk to our panelists first. Dr. Sharma, are transplant recipients at higher risk?
I mean, there are two aspects to it. One is risk of infection, and one is what if they catch an infection. So I think catching an infection is probably the risk is same for everyone. I mean, anyone who's in close contact with the infected patient is likely to catch the virus. That risk remains with everyone.
Right.
But what happens if you catch an infection? More than 99%, I would say, the earlier data says that about 99% patients, healthy patients in the normal age group will recover. But what happens to the transplant patient, we are not sure. We are definite as far as the data is coming that they are definitely going to have a higher viral load, as is also seen with other infections. Right. And possibly there is higher morbidity and more requirement of hospitalization, ICU stay, and maybe higher death also. So we need to be cautious there.
Right. Okay. And in terms of Dr. Khullar, in terms of dialysis patients, because they need to go regularly for dialysis, or in general, intrinsically, are they at greater risk?
Yes, they are. And I think there are many aspects to when we are talking about our patients who are on dialysis, the way they are going to be trying to cope up with this menace of COVID. It's not just any routine visit by a patient to the hospital when it comes to our patients on dialysis, because they, out of compulsion, have to come to the hospital, come what may, at least 2 to 3 times in a week. So the issues are the big challenges with which this virus has thrown onto them. One is how to commute to and from the hospital. That's one. Who takes them to the hospital? The challenges faced, just not the transport, but then so many logistics. When you have help available, you don't even think of these small things.
Correct.
Coming back from the dialysis unit, let's say at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, may not be a challenge because you have transport available at any odd hour, at least in the big cities, not generalizing. But now everything seems to be a challenge. On top of that, what Dr. Sharma said, these patients also are immunocompromised. So we have to protect them from catching infections.
Right.
So everyone knows, and of course, everyone I'm sure is aware of the fact that our dialysis patients are immunocompromised. They are likely to catch infections. But what is fearful in the context of COVID-19 is that, God forbid, if they catch infection, is it going to be more severe than the general population? Well, the logic, the common sense would tend to say so, but I'll come back to that, because I'll probably end on a positive note when I tell everyone that so far that actually may not be the case. So I don't want to generalize it. I don't want to give you false hope. Don't want to make my patients complacent that, okay, we are probably as if we are spared from the wrath of COVID-19. But yes, that's something I'll probably want to end on a note of optimism. But yes,
right.
So far we'll agree that they are immunocompromised. They are likely to catch a more severe degree of infection if they were to catch the infection. The rate of catching the infection probably would be similar.
Right. And are there extra precautions that not just that they need to take when they're going back and forth to the dialysis centers, and family members need to take extra precautions as well?
I think that's very, very relevant. And I don't think we should just look at the patients who are at risk. I think our responsibility it should be more holistic. It should be keeping in mind the interests of every fellow human being. And when it comes to that, I think the attendants are equally at risk, because they also have to enter the hospital premises. The fact that they have to leave their patient for dialysis and pick them up makes them prone to catch infections as well. The healthcare providers are equally at risk. So it's just not, it's basically an invisible enemy, and it can invade anyone. So we have to take all sorts of precautions when it comes to prevent each other from catching it. So we have become more and more stricter. We have come out with protocols, devised strategies whereby we don't omit anyone. We are, of course, the interest of the patients on dialysis is of paramount interest to us, but at the same time, equally important is the interest of the attendants. So we are trying to tell everyone that try to come here on your own if you can, if you are healthy enough to be able to come to the dialysis unit on your own. By all means, do that, and we insist that attendants should only accompany only one attendant, that too when the patient himself or herself is not in a position to manage the visit to the hospital. And of course, so many other things. We'll probably come back to them when we have more and more discussion.
Sure. Dr. Sharma, can transplant patients go out for a walk or to get grocery?
I think that, the only way to prevent this infection is to prevent social interaction. So that is the crux of the whole illness and the prevention. So that's what's happening in the world, the lockdowns, the curfews. The primary motive is to prevent any interaction. So that is the only way you can get infected. So since if we assume that the transplant patient is at a higher risk, so I think they should probably avoid as far as possible and engage other people in the household or in the neighborhood to get all the groceries or whatever. And so probably at this time, probably try to stay at your home, do whatever walks and exercise in the household itself. Maybe rather than doing walks, do yoga or some other physical activities to remain physically active.
Okay.
So avoiding is the best way.
Right. Okay. There's one question which I'll just take because I'm sure this will come up again and again, but what is the option if immunosuppressants are not available in the market? I have experienced difficulty in getting these supplies.
That's a major issue which our patients are facing at this moment, and we're trying with all the pharmaceutical companies. So what has happened over the first week was very bad. So everything was closed. So, but gradually things are opening up, and now the good thing has happened is that the speed post has come up. So a lot of companies have tied with the Indian Post, and they are delivering it to their houses. A lot of brand switching has happened, like somebody was taking medicine from Novartis, which is not available, and they've gone on to some other company, and so that thing is happening. So what I want to say is that if you're changing your brand, do check your drug level, say after 1 week or 2 weeks, because you may have some variation when you are changing the brands. So let us hope that with further opening up, I mean, the government is positive about opening up. They're not going into a complete lockdown. So let us hope that things would improve further on.
And is there, who should they contact? Are there helpline numbers, or should they just contact their doctor to figure out?
Normally, I mean, what we have done is for our patients, we have opened up a WhatsApp helpline where we are actually dealing them on an OPD basis, and we are getting about daily 40 to 50 consultations on WhatsApp.
Right.
And there we are sharing whatever brand of medicines they are taking, we are sharing their helplines, and I'm sure that they'll be available on their sites as well.
Okay. Question: what will a dialysis patient do if he tests positive?
That's the big question, you see, and I think something which we are going to have to face more and more common. So I'll give you two scenarios here: what the initial policies were, and then what happens when the infection, God forbid, becomes overwhelming. Because we have to be mentally prepared for both the scenarios. At the moment, what the clear instructions to everyone was that we should not allow COVID positive patients to get intermingled with the other patients under any cost. So that is why Government of India had come out with COVID designated hospitals.
Right.
So that's one. Now, the ideal situation is going to remain this only, that we will have two kinds of patients. One is the COVID positive patient, the others would be COVID suspected patients. And then, of course, the third are the asymptomatic patients, whereby we may believe they are not having it, but to the contrary, they actually may already have had the virus in their body. They could be in a situation where they would be spreading the virus, but then unknowingly. So that's the third. And I think that's the most difficult situation, where you believe the other person is absolutely normal, and still the person could actually be potentially infective to others. Now, the common things first. COVID positive patients, and obviously, initially, they may be, as I said, asymptomatic, but very soon, in majority of the cases, they may have some kind of symptoms. The moment I'm taking you one step ahead. I'm not coming to the main question, that is COVID positive patient. So we are saying that we have a situation whereby someone gets symptoms, and now it becomes a COVID suspect patient. Now that's the big challenge. So what the policy which we have, and this is basically in accordance with what the Government of India, Ministry of Health has come out with, the revised guidelines, that they should be dialyzed in a separate area, the isolation area. And then in a few dialysis units where that is not possible, they should be at the end of the dialysis shifts, that's late in the evening. Or if that is not also possible, you must segregate them as much as possible, and try to have them towards the one remote side of the place of the dialysis unit. Right. So now this is when we are suspecting, we are taking all precautions. The healthcare providers are made to wear the PPE, that's their protective equipment, them for their own safety as well. And then, yes, by the next day, you will have the report. If it is negative, then obviously that does not mean that you will say, okay, this patient is negative for sure, because the currently available investigations, the RT-PCR, which I'm sure everyone has heard about, has about 30 to 35% chances of missing a proven case of COVID-19. So if they have symptoms, we are still viewing them with suspicion, at least for the next 5 or 7 days. And during this period, we will keep them in isolation area.
And you will do repeat tests? Will you test?
We'll do a repeat test on day 5. So that so there are many things which I'm sure the participants here have a decent idea about what is incubation period, what is asymptomatic period, when does PCR come as positive, when do antibodies. I think if time permits, we can have some discussion on that as well. But now finally to your question, and that was, if it is a COVID positive patient, as of today, when the situation fortunately is not overwhelming, we have to send them to government designated hospitals. That's what the guidelines say. There are hospitals which are COVID designated. They are supposed to have separate dialysis machines for only these kind of patients, separate staff who remain in quarantine till the time, I mean, obviously for that period. And once they come out, they're in quarantine for a couple of weeks before they can come back and join the duties. But during this period, till the patient is COVID positive, is recovering, they should be segregated. And this is something which we have discussed amongst our own selves as well, because guidelines are guidelines. We have to adapt them to our own requirement, and we at times overdo things so that we don't want to leave anything to chance. So the guidelines say that's a bare minimum one must do. Probably would want to err on the other side and say that we want to do this much extra as well, so that we don't, to the best of our knowledge and capability, leave anything to chance.
Right.
So in one line, COVID positive patients have to be dialyzed in COVID designated hospitals. Now coming to the overwhelming situation, whereby if we are going to experience what countries like Italy, Spain, or US are doing, and then probably we will have to have probably some COVID designated dialysis facilities whereby all the patients who have been tested positive are taken up in that particular facility, which is for COVID positive patients. But you may ask me what happens to areas, far-flung areas where these kind of facilities are not available, whereby even getting with a strong suspicion, it may not be possible to get someone tested for COVID-19 in a remote area of the country. What do we do? Are we going to? So I think the answer there would be to take as much of precautions as possible. Keep them in the isolation area, segregate them, use all precautions so that there is no cross-infection.
May I ask Dr. Khullar one question?
Yeah.
So a lot of centers in our in Tri-City have actually, not a lot, some of them have closed, and then the other centers have advised that maybe you can go on to twice a week dialysis from 3 times a week, just to free up some resources. So is it what you are also recommending?
Yeah, Dr. Ashish, that's a very, very relevant question, I tell you. Something like this happened in Bombay. They closed down a dialysis unit. Now, my basic question to you, everyone, would be, I don't know whether COVID-19 is going to kill how many people, but if you deprive your dialysis patients of dialysis, you are surely going to kill them. I don't think that is justifiable. And I think finally, when the agencies, when the governmental agencies realize this, I think they have allowed to open these areas, because you see that most of the dialysis units in the various places are already chocker blocked. To have one big center closed down, it's like putting those patients at mercy of availability of dialysis unit, which may or may not happen. So I think that's cruel. We should not do that. If something has happened, you have to tailor make. It'll be the responsibility of that particular unit also to see that maybe if they have to close down maximum of 1 or 2 days to fumigate the whole area and then bring back all the patients. All that you have to do is, people who are on 3 times a week shift, you reduce it to twice a week. People who are on twice a week, you make them once a week, but totally on the advice of the treating doctor, because this can be done only in a few patients. It cannot be generalized, because moving them from thrice a week to twice a week can be quite risky. So only if the treating doctor says it can be done, it should be done. But my fear, as I said at the outset, is I don't know what COVID-19 is going to do, but I know for sure what missing dialysis will do.
Correct. Couple of questions, and I'm going to combine them. How safe will HCQ be on transplant patients? And somebody else said, will HCQ react with other immunosuppressants? Dr. Ashish.
I think the efficacy of HCQ is probably not, it's still in a gray area. So we're not very clear how good it is going to be there. So at the moment, we are not recommending HCQ unless you are proven COVID and you've got a life-threatening disease and then it has got a lot of side effects. You need to have the cardiac thing to be assessed. You need to assess other drugs which can prolong QT intervals. So many things. So that probably will be based on a situation where we have no other alternative and then we are forced to use it. It's not for everyone. We are not recommended to to be taken for patients as a prophylaxis so far.
Right. Okay.
Let me come in here, Pranay.
Sure.
So, Sheesh, I totally agree with you. And I think my request to the participants and to the general public would be, if it comes to treatment of COVID-19, the humble request is leave that onto the doctors. You see, because please don't try to influence the decision of the doctors whether HCQS should be used, can be used. Because if you have COVID-19, your doctor, I'm sure, is going to put in all the efforts to make sure that you are safe. The discussion here is only related to the prevention, or what we call as prophylaxis of COVID-19. And the whole controversy is revolving around whether we should be using, as Dr. Sharma has said, in our transplant patients or even in our dialysis patients. And I think the recommendations are very, very clear. Should only be considered for people who have had some kind of exposure. The healthcare workers or patient to patient, they haven't developed the disease, because again, my request would be, if they have the disease, leave it to your doctors. But if you don't have it, you have unfortunately been exposed, then I think the jury is still out. We don't have the final answer. So it's all this thing. But then the ICMR recommendations have suggested that you can use it, but with caution, you see, because everyone should be aware of the fact that HCQS does have some kind of side effects on one hand, and it can have some deleterious effect onto the heart as well. It can actually prolong the QTC, which can cause irregularity of the heart or arrhythmias. That's one, especially when combined with drugs like azithromycin. That's two. But at the same time, I would again here end on a positive note that if you choose to take it for whatever reason, you should discuss with your doctor first, number one. And secondly, if finally you have taken the decision to go ahead, the fear should not be like as if you are taking a huge risk by taking HCQS alone. Because it's a drug which we use quite often for our patients of lupus. We use it for various autoimmune disorders, but that doesn't mean that I'm advocating the use of HCQS. It's going to be a case-to-case basis, the way you look at it. There are pros and cons of HCQS. The final randomized controlled trials on which the medical fraternity strongly relies upon has not really given us the answer whether it makes a big difference. So till then, as I said, the jury's out. You may choose either way, but always do that with the consent of your treating doctor.
Right. Okay. Thank you. There's a long question which is very specific, Dr. Sharma, about symptoms, but I think I'll go to the point where it is, how do we reach PGI for nephrology doctor consultant, as there is no bus service? And can I take Pangraph 1 mg instead of Tacrograph 1 mg meanwhile? So, how would you like to answer that?
I mean, as I said, that we are open as on WhatsApp, and we're trying to deal with all these situations, so they can actually message us on WhatsApp. So I've already responded to one of the patients, so the same number can be shared with him, and then we can see whether he needs to come, or we can just manage based on the WhatsApp.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Somebody is asking if they can walk on the roof because they heard that there is air transmission, and therefore they are worried whether it's risky.
I think roof should be pretty okay and safe.
Right.
Yeah, so that should be all right.
Right.
There was this theory that virus travels for not just 3 feet or 6 feet, it can travel up to 13 feet. But I think the rooftop is way above, more than 13 feet. So you can
just make sure that you're maintaining social distance on the rooftop as well. So.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. I have, so there's a transplant patient who has follow-up tests. Should they be doing should they be calling the lab personnel at home to do the testing, or should they go to a testing center?
I mean, if a facility is available that the person can come and take the sample from home, I think then that's probably preferable in such a situation where you are not exposing yourself at the lab to other patients. But I'm sure that even at the labs, they will be practicing social distancing. So it's not that if you're going to a lab, you are 100% going to get infected. So as long as they maintain all that discipline, so I think either ways would be safe, but then home probably would be better.
And can they defer these testing, or have they, do you recommend
That
that they
would
continue the testing?
that has to be in consultation with your doctor only. I mean, if it is early post transplant, then obviously the test have to be done at the timely basis. Late transplant period, you can easily defer by a few days or a month, depending upon how much period has elapsed.
The two things here, Parna. One of course is, of course, it's a moral responsibility of the person also who comes in and collects the samples. They should be wearing the proper equipment so that there is no chance of cross infection. So you can't say that, okay, someone comes to your place, is going to be infection free kind of situation. At the same time, people are apprehensive that if someone comes to their place, there are chances that some healthcare worker coming to their place is actually going to carry infection along. That also is not the case. They are always told how to conduct themselves and how to take all the precautions. And about answering your other question as well, you see, it's as Dr. Sharma has very rightly said, if there are immediate post-transplant patients, they need investigations much more frequently. We can't tell them to play safe and not get them done, because again, it boils down to whether COVID is going to do anything to them or not. But then surely, if they are not taking their medicines in the right dosage, if they are not getting or picking up any graft dysfunction, graft means the kidney transplant dysfunction early on, there could be a bigger problem later on. So they are already provided with the list of investigations which they have to get done post-transplantation, and they know it at what frequency. So they should try to adhere to that as much as possible. And if case they have any kind of problem, they should feel free to discuss with their treating doctors. And I'm sure the centers are in these testing times able to come up with some kind of plausible help to them as to what they should be doing, be it the investigations or it the availability of their immunosuppressants. So if it's a worst scenario, they should raise an alarm if their medicines are going to finish at least a week prior to that happening. And in the worst scenario, the government gives them the liberty of going up to their respective hospitals. All that they need is just a letter from their treating doctor, and they'll be allowed from interstate as well. And I'm sure the instructions are quite clear. If someone is short of their life-saving medicines, they should be allowed to at least go up to their respective hospital.
Yeah, we have a slide. I think there have been some announcements today by Uber and Ola as well. So they are increasing the cities that are covered for hospital visits as well. So there are a couple of questions for you, Dr. Khullar. One is asking, it was operated under you and in March, but no, appointment was in March, but so, how should they connect with you? And there's somebody else asking something similar. So what is the best way of connecting with you, Dr. Khullar?
So we have been telling everyone that, of course, as I've already said, please do not miss your immunosuppressant drugs. And for our dialysis patients, do not miss your dialysis session. That's one. Secondly, at the same time, we have tried to bring home this point that if your visit to the hospital is avoidable, please do that. You should not unnecessarily visit the hospital. About the transplant patients having a routine visit. So each and every hospital, I'm sure, has come out with the facility of teleconsultations, and it has actually been there are set guidelines for teleconsultations. So one should, in these kind of testing times, rely more and more on teleconsults. So feel free to discuss with your treating doctors. You can have the teleconsultations, and I think the virtual consults may not be as good as the real consultation, but they can be as good. So rather than making blunders, rather than choosing to think something which to your mind could be logical, but it may not be, so it's best to consult your doctors and do the right thing at the moment.
So for both of you, your details on teleconsultation and the WhatsApp numbers are on the website, or what is the best way for people to find out?
There are various ways, you see. For the old patients, generally it's not difficult because they already know how to get in touch with their respective doctors.
Right.
All the major hospitals have their helpline whereby they put you across through the doctors. There are facilities whereby the hospitals themselves are arranging for these kind of teleconsultations. the situation may be little difficult for new consults, but then again, there are so many portals these days which can take you directly to the one of the doctors you are looking for of that particular specialty, by either through if you have these online portals. But the best would be you look up for all the big hospitals and specifically ask for that particular specialty for which you are looking after, you are seeking the medical advice. And I'm sure this is doable. So the first consult may be difficult. There are guidelines there as well, because since we don't know about the nitty-gritties of their medical details, the government guidelines are that you should limit yourself only to those things which are safe. You should not, so you should not give them that kind of advice which can potentially be harmful because you don't have the details. But yes, it's much easier with your older patients. And whenever in doubt, I think you should not hesitate in going up to the hospitals, thinking that you could actually catch infections, because the situation is not that bad as of now. You have to choose by staying at home and allowing your disease to progress and compare it with the situation where you take a little calculated risk. But of course, if you have to go to the hospital, take all precautions. And the major precautions are wearing a mask. You see, you should not travel without wearing a proper, at least a surgical mask.
Right. So 2 or 3 questions, Dr. Ashish, on going back to work. There's a dentist who's a transplant patient and is asking whether he can start. There's somebody who's asking, when the lockdown is lifted, can I go back to work? And there's 2, 3 questions on the same lines.
So, I mean, as Dr. Kure has already said that, I mean, this lockdown cannot continue forever. And as of now, it appears that going by the past pandemics and all, like these things can last for, say, a couple of years. So some sort of, we don't know how much India is going to get affected, that's for sure. I mean, the West has been really battered, especially the New York area and the Europe. So, but we don't know whether we are going to face the same intensity in the coming days or not. If the situation is not the same, and then, I mean, the work will definitely has to start, and maybe just maintain the basic hygiene and the social distancing. I think that should be enough, and you can start your work. For the dentist, it's slightly at a higher risk, but if you take proper history, and if you are able to ascertain that there are no red flags with the patient, then, I mean, obviously you have to get to work, taking appropriate precautions like wearing a mask and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. The other question that has come up, because you mentioned telemedicine, and there are some guidelines. Ideally, it does say that it is better if it's an existing doctor of yours. But are there, if you need to approach a new doctor, are there any specific guidelines that you would suggest?
Yes, there are guidelines, as I talked about a short while ago. The government has come out with guidelines where they will tell you where to draw a line. And that's why I said, if you are interacting with your old doctor, it becomes easier because you have records which are already there with both of you, and it can be easier for you to relate and vice versa. But for whatever reason, if you have to, and maybe if you are stuck up in a different city and whereby even a teleconsult is not going to be possible, you have to choose a new doctor, by all means do that. But take all precautions. Coming back to the teleconsults, the guidelines are there, and whereby you first fix up a consult, you will have to send your all existing documents in whatever format to your doctor, who first spends some time going through the records and then talks to you. Try and see if it's a video consultation. At least it becomes easy for the doctor to at least from a distance have a feel of what kind of patient he or she is dealing with. So as I said, there are limitations, and the government will allow us only to recommend particular kind of drugs, and a few ones which are I would say riskier ones without proper examination are not allowed to be prescribed over teleconsults. But yes, if it is your old patient, and in the context of a transplant patient, you know that here is your transplant patient, this is the kind of medicine he or she has been taking, and is a very specific question the patient wants to ask you, you can be in a much better situation to guide them, rather than starting all new, whereby you have not the idea about the nitty-gritties of a given case, and there you would want to refrain from giving an advice which you may believe could be detrimental to the patient's health.
Right. Okay. A couple of questions specific. One patient says running low on vitamin D and HB levels, transplant done 7 years ago. Should I be worried more? Dr. Sharma?
I mean, obviously, if you are low on vitamin D, it has to be optimized. There's no, there's no immediate danger from it. So probably you can consult again with your doctor wherever you have been transplanted, and they can probably give you an opinion.
Okay.
So the only consolation is not something new. So the low vitamin D levels is a very common thing across the country, and this doesn't happen overnight. If you have low vitamin D levels today, you probably have been living with this kind of situation for maybe months and years. So don't be unduly scared. And even if you have to correct it, do it very slowly. So you don't have to say that, okay, this is the value, and you would want to achieve that value within a month or a couple of months. Please don't do that, and have consolation of the fact that many of us have low vitamin D deficiency. And on a positive note, maybe take this up as a challenge during these difficult times, and the early sunlight during the day when it's not very hot. So we'll probably provide you with some kind of vitamin D, something which you were not doing. And I think we often discuss among ourselves that on a lighter note, this virus is probably going to teach you how to lead a proper life, which we probably all of us had forgotten. So these social distancing, these hygiene, personal hygiene, and things are all kind of things which is being bombarded across these days should have been the norm. I mean, human beings should have been living the way these guidelines are telling us to do that. Obviously, I mean, this is not the way we should have been taught this lesson, but then yes, this is the way one should live life.
One more question on diet, Dr. Sharma. Can we eat chicken? I had transplant 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to eat, you can eat. I mean, transplant doesn't prohibit anything. Once your kidney function is normal, so you can eat and drink whatever a normal person can do. So you can eat whatever you want.
Right. While going for dialysis, is mask sufficient, or do we need anything else? I think you already said that, but just to reiterate. Sorry, you are not, we can't hear you, Dr. Kular. No, we've lost audio. Okay, I'll take questions in the meantime with Dr. Ashish while you figure out. I guess patient last tech level test is now 8 months old, which was supposed to be repeated in 6-7 months. Is it what we need to do now, or we can still postpone it for another month?
I mean, so if your transplant is like many years old, so definitely you can wait for another month. Nothing was going to happen. Just keep on taking the same medicine. I mean, must be an old transplant patient because already 6 months have been advised. So just keep on taking the same medicine, get your serum creatine checked up. And if it is normal, then just wait.
Right. Okay. Question, Dr. Kular, are you back? Not yet. No, not yet. It's still saying connecting to audio. There was also one question on how many hours can I work out? I'm assuming that's a transplant patient. Yeah, exercise.
So exercise. So whatever was your routine before, so you can just keep on following it. So there is no change because of the COVID lockdown. So just keep on following your daily routine. There is no limit. I mean, some normal patients would probably be doing well with 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity every day. But we've had patients who are like bodybuilders also, who spend 6 to 8 hours per day in the gym. So, I mean, so all extreme patients we have.
Okay. Dr. Kular, are you audible?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. I think computer got hung.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're seeing two of you. I don't know. Let me try and remove the other one. I'm scared that it's not. Okay. Never mind. Continue.
Right. Okay. So where were we? This was regarding the. I was going to tell about an important aspect about the testing strategies which we have these days. Because someone asked this question whether wearing a mask is enough or not.
Right.
Well, you see, a surgical mask is the bare minimum. We are not allowing anyone to visit the dialysis unit, be it the patient or the attendant or even the healthcare providers. No one should be seen inside the dialysis unit without wearing a mask. Now, whenever we have a suspected patient whereby we could be suspecting COVID-19, we take all the extra precautions whereby everyone should be now wearing at least an N95 mask, and those healthcare providers who are going to be in close proximity and close contact with the patient, they should be wearing a PPE, the personal protective equipment, whereby they should first protect themselves as well. And proper doffing and donning techniques are there, where everyone has to be made aware how to wear that equipment and how to take it off in the most safe manner. At the slightest hint, and now that we have more and more kits available, and we have the liberty to do that, as well as the permission by the government of India, we are doing more and more tests on these patients. So we are not, as I said, leaving anything to chance. Even though we may know that a given patient is coughing, it's part of the kidney disease, there could be water in the lungs. We know for sure, based on our past experience of that patient, that the breathlessness or the cough is because of the kidney disease. We still would insist on getting a COVID-19 test done so that we come to know if it is there and everyone else is safe. So I think dictum nowadays is to test as many patients as possible, as many number of times as possible, because I think, and no one should mind it, because it is for everyone's safety here.
Okay. For Dr. Sharma, sir, what can we take for vitamin C and other necessary vitamins and other minerals in this situation? My 1 year completed after transplant.
I think best is to take fresh fruits and veggies rather than taking artificial supplements. So there's a lot of thing going on the WhatsApp that take zinc and take vitamin C, and there are drugs and preparations available in the market. But my best advice would be to take whatever is there in whatever comes from the nature. So take fresh veggies and fresh fruits.
Thanks. And also one more transplant question. 2-year transplant patient. During this lockdown, my weight has been raised by 5 kilos. Wow. It increases rapidly. What exercise should I do to decrease my weight?
I think, in a month, if you are going to gain 5 kgs, that doesn't sound very good. So you must start cutting down on your diet. That's the most important thing. And along with that, start something like yoga, asanas. If you do it regularly, that consumes a bit of energy. Obviously, you cannot go out and do walking. If you have some sort of gymming device at your home, so you can start doing that.
Yeah, even if you use water bottles with, as weights, weights is always a good thing to start at home. CKD patient, stage 2, my leg muscles under knees, pain, a doctor suggested vitamin D. Is that normal?
Well, I think that holds, as I said, holds true for most of the general population also. So, but yes, kidney patients have two kind of components to the vitamin D. One is what we are saying, that everyone is deficient of vitamin D these days because of our lifestyles and so many other factors. That's one, which even our chronic kidney disease patients are also lacking. But it's equally important to understand that kidney is the organ which activates the vitamin D. So whatever vitamin D we get out of the diet or the sunlight is of no use unless that goes up to the kidney for the activation, what is called hydroxylation. So as the kidney function deteriorates, the active form of vitamin D is not available to the body. So rather than, so you may have sufficient vitamin D from the sunlight, but yet it may not be of much use to the body if the kidney is not working well. So we have to give additional supplements, the active form vitamin D, which comes as medicines, which come. So I think that's on a case-to-case basis. Let's limit ourselves to general discussion today.
Right,
and
right.
These kind of things you can always discuss with your respective
Correct.
doctors.
And I'm very conscious that we are getting to the last 5-10 minutes, so we'll just take a couple more questions, I think. Due to scarcity of CellCept medicine, please suggest other options.
So there are many brands you see, and I think coming from the top 5 or 10 brands, the real good ones, you should not worry too much. It's more important to have the medicine. But when it comes to tacrolimus or cyclosporin, it's very important that, as Dr. Sharma had suggested, that whenever you change the brands, there is a likelihood that the drug levels may get changed. So you don't do it very frequently. Do it once. Check the levels of those medicines where the levels can be checked. Of CellCept, we don't get the levels checked. And CellCept is a brand name for a drug called mycophenolate mofetil. You have many brands, at least 10, 15 good brands available. So it's very important, rather than having fixed ideas of not wanting to change your brands, even at the cost of not having the medicine. So the best is go by the same brand. The next best is do not miss the dose and go in for an alternative brand, at least for that short period of time. But under no circumstances you should miss your immunosuppressants. That's the key message.
Right.
Yeah, even if you're short on one medicine, you should always contact your doctor. So sometimes you can increase the dose of other medicine if the situation comes to that. But do not skip any medicine without consultations.
Right. There's a couple of questions on Calcutta. Next week we are doing, and just message us. We will get back to you on Calcutta specific questions as well. And I think this is a general question which is not specific to this, so I'll skip it. Dr. Kula, there's somebody who says, I have a relative from Ghaziabad. He's on dialysis, waiting for fistula for last 1 month. PGI Chandigarh, but can't get to Chandigarh now. So what is the option for him to contact in NCR?
So there are many centers which can create an AV fistula for the purpose of dialysis in your patient. And I think you can always contact one of the nearby hospitals which have the necessary expertise. The problem here is, for the safety of everyone, we have tried to defer the elective surgeries. Now, if you have some alternative vascular access for your dialysis, everyone would want the fistula surgery also to be delayed.
You've again got...
We don't know how long this lockdown is going to go on, and we'll finally have to accept the fact that this could be a part of life. So you may have to move on after taking necessary precautions. And precautions here are that we are insisting that the patient gets tested for COVID-19. The report comes within 24 hours, and then we can take them up for elective surgery such as AV fistula surgery. So this is being done routinely at most of the centers. You just have to get in touch with a local nephrologist, transplant surgeon, vascular surgeon who can do it for you.
Right. Should patients be stocking up medicines, and for how long?
I mean,
sorry.
Go
ahead, Dr. Sharma.
Same answer. I mean, I think probably, the supply chain is opening up, so I don't think there's any point in having a stock for 2 months, and so just do whatever you do in a normal situation.
Right.
So I was tempted to say here that there's a difference between stocking and hoarding. Please don't resort to this latter one, because you see, it's unnecessary panic, because government gets full credit the way they have handled the situation. They have not imposed any unrealistic kind of restrictions. So health care has always been their priority. And I think I don't see that this has put a big inconvenience to many of the patients. Where it could wait, going to the hospital, one obviously should wait. But where it's a life endangering situation, no one is stopping him from going ahead, or the non-availability kind of scenario is not going to be there.
Right. Couple of questions on diabetes. So post-transplant patient with diabetic type 2, sugar level is volatile. What can I do? And also another one asking amount of potassium and protein a CKD patient can have in a day.
So, I mean, your exercise would have gone down in the lockdown, so that might explain. Or if you are staying at home and have nothing to do but except for you keep on eating, so you have to see what is the main problem and try to solve it. If you're eating more, try to cut down your diet and try to take food which are 0 calorie, like you can have cucumber or other salads, so which will not give you any calories but will have your appetite full. And otherwise, if nothing is working, then you probably have to increase the doses of insulin or the oral drugs which you are taking.
Right. Yeah. And
So
also, I think stress is a factor. So
yes,
try and stay calm. So
yes, I was wanting to say the same, because don't be unnecessarily scared of this word COVID-19. And as I said, I'll probably want to part on a positive note, and let me come out with what the good news I have to convey to many of the participants here as well, the ones whose relatives are suffering from chronic kidney disease and they're on dialysis. Well, the positive note is that we have some data from the places where COVID-19 already has been rampant, and the general fear was that it probably would be very, very harsh on to our dialysis patients. But luckily, so far, what we have seen is that the dialysis patients have not been, it has not actually proved to be a big problem for those dialysis patients who had contracted COVID-19 disease. There are various theories. So theories in the sense that maybe they are compromised. They don't have, their body doesn't have the ability to mount a response to the virus. So they don't have that typical cytokine storm, which you may have heard about. So that is something which actually kills the patients, many of them, the cytokine storm. So if your body doesn't have the capacity to mount that kind of response, then the possibility is that the disease may not be as fatal in dialysis patients as one was actually fearing. But please don't take that as something which should make you feel complacent, Please don't do that. Take all precautions, but at the same time have this consolation that the data so far has not proved the fact that it's going to be a deadly disease in our dialysis patients. So it hasn't. So
right.
So in the Indian context, so far the data which we have, it has not proved that deadly a virus so far. I don't know. No one can foresee the kind of things we are going to see in the next couple of weeks, which are going to be the deciding factors. So far, it is not that deadly. Comparing it with what the countries like US or Italy or Spain have experienced, whole lot of theories, whether your BCG vaccination is protecting you, whether the summers are going to be your savior, or whether the virus has mutated. I don't want to go into those kind of controversies, but the fact so far is that at least on 15th of April, this has not proved to be very, very deadly. We have seen many endemics, not pandemics, many endemics in the past as well. Always it was the human being which came out as victorious. So I have no reason to believe that this time also we are going to be the losers. So we will come out victorious here as well.
Right. There's a lot more questions. Sorry, we won't be able to take any more questions. And some of them are quite specific. Some of them are repeated of what we've already covered. So you can follow it's being streamed on Facebook on our page. So if you go there, you'll see the recording later as well. And we will put up a recording on YouTube. I'll just do a quick synopsis, and Dr. Sharma, if you want to. So this is just, I know last week, teams were working on trying to get arrangements organized, but as of today, there's much more relaxation on emergency services for transportation. So Uber has announced in few cities, Mumbai, Bangalore, Nashik, Gurgaon, and Hyderabad, and Ola in Gurgaon, Bangalore, Vizag, Bhubaneswar, Nashik, and Varanasi, and more will come up over the next few days for sure. We are doing this in 10 languages. So tomorrow we are doing in Hindi. We have another Dr. Sanjeev Gulati from Fortis, and we'll have a transplant patient, Rita Patnaik as well. Dr. Ashish, any final words before I kind of say thank you to both of you?
I think we are lucky that our government has acted in a very mature way. They've done the lockdown at the right time, and now they're trying to open up the things in a right way, very controlled way. And so I think we are probably in the safe hands. And as Dr. Kular has said, that probably we've not seen the worst as it has happened in the West and in the Europe. So let us hope and pray that things remain cool and calm, and we are able to get to the work and in a normal way. Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Kular, for joining and sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a wonderful opportunity, Ashish, and thank you so much, Aparna and Patient Engage, and it's been a wonderful opportunity.
Great. Thank you, and thank you on behalf of Kidney Warriors Foundation, and also like to thank Biocon Biologics, who's supporting this series. And thank you, Dr. Ashish and Dr. Kular, for taking so much time and going through so many questions patiently. And I think what we will do is we will put out, they've told you how you can get in touch with them or their units as well. And as we reminded, be responsible, stay at home. If you step out, wear a mask, reduce the loads on hospitals, doctors, nurses, confirm your appointments before you go, carry whatever documentation you need if you're going in transport, and don't feel anxious and stressed. I think that's something that both Dr. Kular and Dr. Sharma have reiterated. Exercise at home, no reason to be it's actually a good time to practice new habits rather than kind of pick new bad ones. So, and as always, you can follow us. Thank you so much, everyone. And let me just stop sharing and stop streaming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.